Hey guys, I'm Tracy, and this is Module 9 for AP 855, and this is my case study. I found this very interesting. I definitely could see this honestly being a case at a high school. I have not had any experience with this, but even I teach second grade. I've had weapons brought to school. So there are policies that we do have to follow, and let's just take a look at the summary. So when and where did this happen? It was in the hallway before the fifth period at Rocket Junior High School. Who's involved? We have James, we have David, and we have Richard. So James is the 15-year-old from Southside that we know of. He had actually given the brass knuckles to David when he was called down to the office. David is the young scholar who was involved, I don't know if he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but we do know that he cried, he shook, and he would not speak when he was in the office. And Richard Inman, he is a first-year assistant principal at the high school, the junior high school. So what happened? James was going to the office and to discuss his tardiness, his third tardy for the week with Principal Richard Inman, and his teacher saw James in the hallway kind of run into give something to David, and she thought it was drugs. She wasn't certain, but she did call Richard Inman to let him know. So then the other student was David. He was brought in by the police officer. Richard Inman questioned both boys, and the police officer searched David and found the brass knuckles and arrested him. So he was handcuffed. James did speak up, which Richard did say that was surprising. And I think he even said he experienced joy that he did speak up, but then guilt and sadness for him. So both boys were taken to jail with a charge of a felony. They also received 45 days of expulsion. That's from the beginning what we know, but it does play out differently. So next, there are legal and ethical issues for sure, concerns in this case. You guys all know. But James, first off, he brought brass knuckles. That's a weapon. That is a felony offense. So that has to be dealt with. James threatened David to hold on to the brass knuckles. James mentioned talking to both boys at first, and even the police officer was brought in right away. Instead of speaking one-on-one, he involved, I feel like, the officer and kind of everyone way too quickly. David was searched by the police officer. Brass knuckles were found. Richard did what he should as he followed the school policy with James, but not necessarily David. He ripped up the paper for the being expelled and then calling parents after they were gone. So there are just some legal and ethical concerns that in that moment, I'm sure there would be with anyone. Things I feel like happen so quickly, but let's take a little closer look. So in one sentence, what would I say? So James was called in the office for tardiness, and on his way, he threatened David to hold on to his brass knuckles, and in the end, Richard Inman did not follow school policy regarding the felonies and expulsion for both James and David. So, in one sentence, that's what I feel like happened. Let's look at the facts. So the people, Richard Inman, we know he's male. He's a first-year assistant. We do know he is also from the South Side. James, 15 years old, male from the South Side. It was told in the beginning that he was, I think, the leader of the group. And we also found out he was heavily tattooed and muscular. David, he was 13 years old, male, played the trombone, honor student, young scholar, no disciplinary issues. We know James' mom, how she handled kind of Richard calling, said to leave James there and maybe he would learn a lesson. David's mom, on the other hand, was very angry with Richard, and she didn't feel like David was responsible. And then we also have the director of the disciplinary school, DAEP. We know he's a male. He called Richard a week after the incident to tell him that he was going to, if he wouldn't fill it out, that he would write him an official reprimand. So, places and the program. It's in the hallway at the Rocket Junior High School, Richard Inman's office, I'm guessing. And then the program is, of course, the high school. There's 900 students, and I think it's a public school. I don't think it was officially said. Section 5, review and prioritize. So this situation definitely is damaging to people. Richard Inman, first off, I feel like his reputation as first-year principal, just how kind of he handled things, even people not trusting him, parents, staff, students. James, of course, his future. David, his future and his record, since this was his first time and it was, such a big thing. For sure the community, so the school community, but also the town. Maybe being worried about safety, not trusting admin and decision-making, reputation of students and staff. So people with important stake of the outcome, I would say all of them. Every person, the outcome is going to impact every single one of them. Learning more, what do I feel like I do need to learn more? I feel like I could have made a whole list of things I would like to know more about, but just a few. I, first off, want to know all sides of the story. So I want to hear from James, from David, the teacher that witnessed it, maybe even their friends. So I'm sure James talked about why he brought the brass knuckles to school. That's my next question, but kind of investigating through his friends of what happened and just, why David? Was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or is there a connection between James and David? Identifying the options. So first, taking no action. I feel like, I won't go there yet, but number 2, moving forward with them being expelled, could create hardships, conflicts. Number 3, I said investigate and hear stories. So I would say Richard definitely needs to kind of dig a little deeper with all the parties that were involved. And then number 4, I said investigate and bring in admin. He's a first-year assistant principal, and him not bringing admin into this, I don't know if it's how I read it, if everything just happened so quickly, but him needing to collaborate with the principal and even the counselor, just having that support and the wisdom from others. I feel like whatever the option would be that he would take, he would of course have more support from them, instead of kind of just doing this on his own. So evaluate. Option number 1, I said if Richard would definitely have a loss of trust from admin, from the board, from his staff, from students, from parents. He would have a official reprimand, loss of respect. James continued down this road if there was no action taken. Moving forward with being expelled, with expulsion. If Richard would move forward with this, there would be some hardships. For example, for him, loss of trust. With David, no record his record and future, and even between Richard and David, kind of that relationship that they've started to cultivate. Definitely, I could see some hardships with that. And then for James, just relationship with Richard. I switched those around. So James and Richard and then David. Mix those up. And then for option 3, Richard definitely needs to do some digging with all parties. So first, hearing from James, why did he have the brass knuckles? Hearing from David, and then the teacher, friend groups, and then admin, and even parents. And option 4, so when Richard would bring in his admin, I just feel like they would kind of have that accountability for him of what he should do, and kind of just help him make this decision and not make it a decision that Richard would not mess up, but would later on kind of regret what he did. So best option, I would say, I would go with a mixture kind of. I feel like all of them, but yeah, let's start with option 3 and 4 first. So investigating and hearing stories, but before that, I probably would, I'm switching what I originally said, I would bring in admin. So I would kind of let them know what's going on, and then maybe talk to each of the boys separately, and then talk to the teacher and kind of get all the facts before he makes a decision. And then when he would be able to have that support and just the wisdom and knowledge of his administration, then he would definitely feel just more confident with what he has to do with James and expelling him due to the felony, and then even changing the policies for David. I remember it saying that it was a broken system. And so there's him getting expelled when they weren't his, I think is just kind of weighing on Richard. So first, if I would implement this, I would definitely say communicate and investigate. So whether that was having all, obviously he needs to have someone else in there with him. So whether that's communicating with admin first and then bringing them in and they all investigate, or he does it himself. But step 2, I would say investigate just the school laws, school policies, and thinking through those ethical concerns that are in this situation. So kind of like slowing down, because there are concerns, and so he needs to think about those. Third, I would make kind of a decision tree with from this class, but I would just think through what is going to happen if I make this decision and have that support from my admin before making any decision. And then finally, my last step would be reflecting and taking time to think. Just before you communicate and make that decision, kind of taking yourself out of the moment and just kind of the struggle, because he does have personal connections in this. And so I can, any connections are hard, but he does have to follow just ethical laws, and definitely concerns there. So it was a great study, case study that I could see honestly happening. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.